Australia is grappling with severe housing crisis and a glaring shortage of affordable homes. In today's Property Roast, we're roasting Australia's building industry. Why are we so goddamn slow? So in today's Property Roast, we're gonna look at a company in Austin, Texas called Icon, which is this video here I'm gonna share with you, that uses 3D printing to build houses, livable, affordable houses, not in years, but months. We're talking about fast, affordable housing within months. And this company, Icon, which I'll show you the video later, has built an entire suburb just by using a 3D printer, which is by all means not a very innovative technology. We have 3D printers these days, right? They just made it ginormous, and not to make toys, but houses. Let's check out this video.
Printed an entire neighborhood. All those houses were printed with those giant machines. But get this, because they're printed, people can design wild looking homes that are actually affordable to build. The company behind this is called Icon. And to build their homes,
that's the company I'm talking about, Icon.
They designed two state-of-the-art robots, the Vulcan and the Phoenix. Now the Phoenix is an insane feat of engineering. It's a multi-story crane that can...
God, can you guys imagine that? Like a multi-story crane. So basically the plot of land, for example, you know, if you're in Sydney, Australia, you know, Western Sydney, Marsden Park, or those Leppington, Lemire area with a whole block of land, you see this truck with the crane and the 3D printer. Imagine they're just like printing houses. Like right now, with all these dodgy builders going bankrupt, imagine you don't need builders, or you might need builders to oversee that, maybe a project manager, but you don't have all these middle people in the way, you know, the laborers, the building companies that basically create multiple ABNs. Their cousins have multiple ABNs. One person goes bankrupt, and the other person takes over. All these dodgy building companies going bust at the moment because they're so bloody dodgy. Imagine all replaced by 3D printers. Like how much saving we can get from that and pass on to the end consumer. So rather than buying a house for like $1.2 million in Western Sydney, it could be like maybe $600,000. How is that going to affect the housing market in terms of supply and demand? I don't know, but that's just a thought.
And lay an entire home foundation in just 24 hours. But here's where it gets wild. Icon also built...
Build a house in 24 hours.
Truvius, an AI architect. You just type in what kind of house you want, bedrooms, bathrooms.
Wouldn't that be cool, right? You have an AI that designs the house as your architect and your builder. You don't even need the goddamn people to do it.
Style, and it helps you custom build your dream home. They have hundreds of unique designs, and the customization is nearly endless. But here's why this all really matters. Companies like Icon could help solve the housing crisis.
Do you guys think this company, if there was some sort of similar company in Australia, can solve the housing crisis now? Like, you know, there was a video that I roasted back a few weeks ago about this guy crying about how, oh, you know, because immigrants and they're stealing all our jobs, they're stealing all our properties, I have to be forced to be homeless. What if there is a solution where we can 3D print houses at a low cost so that guys like him won't whinge about being made homeless?
I think they can get construction costs down below $25 per square foot. That's 8 times lower than California. All these design concepts you're seeing cost less than $99,000 to build.
Damn, $99,000 to build. Obviously, in Australian terms, maybe about $300,000, $200,000 to build, maybe. Right now, it's costing about $500,000, $600,000 to build a goddamn simple house.
And one more thing, Icon's using that same 3D tech to build test structures for Mars. And not gonna lie,
that is actually legit news. Icon is actually working with NASA at the moment to build like, you know, like homes in Mars. For example, in conjunction with Elon Musk, you know, his SpaceX project. Once he finds a way to habitize Mars, they were using companies like Icon. So if Icon can build a goddamn house in Mars, in the outer space, I'm sure right now they can build a house in goddamn Australia, Sydney, right? Now guys, this is not just happening in Austin, Texas, it's also happening in China. This is Douyin, a Chinese platform, mothership of TikTok, and this is what they're doing in China at the moment. They're saying 2 people operating this crane, right, in 2 weeks can build a goddamn house. Look at this building, dude. It's saying here 2,000 to 2,500 yuan per square meter, which if we convert it to Australian, it's about $437 per square meter, which is like so cheap to build compared to Sydney right at the moment, right? You're talking about maybe $1,500 to $2,000 per square meter to build a goddamn house.
100多平米，差不多20多万。3D 打印建筑具有很强的生命力。
Nice, man. Like, I'm not gonna lie, if you do build it with brick and mortar at the moment, yes, it looks much nicer than this kind of like looking house. It looks like you know there's Sunday at McDonald's, and they're like getting the cone and going through that. It looks like a piece of poop. But for the structure, for the livability, and for the affordability, it's something that locals who are struggling with the housing crisis and the cost of living can opt to if the Australian government would allow this to happen. And I'll look into, and I'll talk about why later I'll talk about why the Australian government would not allow this type of technology, to enter into Australia. But for now, let's watch what is the capability of 3D printing houses.
我是从2003年开始研究数。
So we have old mate here in China, 2003. He started studying how to use 3D printing to build houses. And let's continue with him.
建筑和智能建造。当时在国内没有一个人知道这个设计的方向。我打
So
印
over here is this 3D
把这个
printer
技
that
术
he
呢用
invented.
来进行实际的建造，
And he's
做
built
了有
like
将近20多项实际的项目。
structures like this. Look at that. Damn.
现在
That
团队
was from actually a 3D model and became that. That looks pretty lit.
加在一块的20多个人，尤其是90后、00后。最早做的一个项目呢，新桥
You can also build,
在上海，
you can also build
当时
bridges.
呢影响很
See?
大，中央电视台包括100多家媒体都报了。
And look how many people can stand on that goddamn bridge built by 3D printing. I think about all the labor, all the people holding traffic signs, all that crap, all the people there. Obviously, we're going to address that later in terms of employment. But all those people are gone. It's just a 3D printer and maybe 3 or 4 guys that are operating this, maybe engineers.
那首先要在软件里安装的这个
Now, over
农
here
宅
is
哈
the，
今年呢
final
被
products of 3D
评为
printers
河北省最美的家庭。前天给我发了一个微信，说感谢徐教授哈，这个房子
These
太
are
好了，
examples of
我们
homes
那个感
built
觉
by
很
the
幸
3D
福。
by the
那
3D
混凝土
printer.
打印的房子呢，它比旁边的民宅呢坚固，它保暖，夏天保冷，
Very
节能
nice. Very nice, guys.
农村里的路很窄，大卡车开不进去，大轿街呢也进不去。你有发明了小车，智能机器呢就能开进这个农民院，开始自己打印。
Imagine that, guys. We can just buy our own 3D printers, and according to AI technology, we build our own goddamn homes, like own a builder with a 3D printer.
一个月可以建2栋房。
Now, obviously, for big, complex structures like this, you need an engineer, you need a license, all that stuff. But think about the capability, guys. So right now, we're gonna dive into the roast of why the Australian government would not allow this technology to hit our shores. Let's look into this. Now, guys, this is my counter argument to why the Australian government will not allow such technology to come to Australia, either from the US and obviously not from China because China are communist. But like, these are my reasoning, all right? Why Australia would hesitate to bring 3D printing housing technology to Australia. Now, I don't have those fancy swooping and all that. I don't have a video editor that does this. I just did this on Word, and you guys can read this with me. I reckon first and foremost, regulatory safety concerns. As you guys would notice that, 3D printing, has there been homes built in Australia that has 3D printing? How is it gonna weather like storm, the hot temperature in Australia? What about bushfires? We have a lot of bushfires in Australia. What about Queensland, bloody flooding? Cyclone or tornado Alfred that ripped through Queensland like about 2 weeks ago. What about that, right? Another thing is economic impact on traditional construction. There's a lot of builders at the moment getting rich moolah from, this type of industry, right? Because of the high labor costs, high material, and sometimes it might be an excuse. They might be cutting a bigger margin in between to build these homes that are selling for $1.2 to $1.5 million for unsuspecting first home buyers and first time investors. So it says it here, 8% of Australia's GDP employs about over 1.1 million Australians, according to the Australian Bureau of Statistics. So for example, the 3D printer, and then we have these people who operate these 3D printers. We have less labor, we're redefining, we're basically disrupting the whole industry with 3D printing. What is going to happen to those people? Are they going to go on strike and go, oh, it's not fair because we're out of a job because now houses are affordable, but we now don't have a job? So obviously we're going to balance that. And then there's also initial cost and infrastructure investment. And then now I don't think this is a counter argument, especially with the government spending about 20 to 30 billion dollars in, for example, in bloody the AUKUS agreement with America to buy these goddamn shitty submarines. and plus done proposing to build all these bloody power plants that will want to explode and kill people. Like, they were spending over $100 billion on that. Why don't we use that to invest into 3D printing and affordable housing in Australia? Like, what about that, guys? And also, there's also cultural resistance and market acceptance, right? For example, me as a millennial, and those first home buyers, first time investors that use me for my service, also millennials, Gen Zs, Gen X, Gen Alphas, you know, we're open to this cultural change. But what about the boomers? What about the boomers that operate in the parliament, the cabinets, right? They're not gonna agree to this, like, because they're rubbing shoulders with the big developments, right? The big developers, the people who sponsor through charity events their political parties. They're not gonna be happy with that, right? So the concern, and then another concern, which is the last concern, is the resale value, right? If you know a house was built by a 3D printer, how is that going to affect the resale value? How would that affect those houses that are bought for brick and mortar, right, on the same plot of land? Would that disrupt the space? For example, you bought a house for $1.2 million brick and mortar, and next minute someone builds a house for like $200,000, and their house is, say, for example, worth $600,000, which is half of yours. How do you value that? So there's a lot of questions that needs to be addressed if we're going to bring this type of technology into Australia. But guys, jump in the comments, what do you think about, you know, these type of 3D printers that are in other countries at the moment? China, America, I heard Denmark is trialing at the moment. What do you think? Jump in the comments. Do you think we should just trial this out? Do you think this will disrupt this industry to in-proportional margins? Probably drive everyone crazy and turn the market upside down. And I'd love to read your comments on what you think about using 3D printers to disrupt the expensive housing crisis in Australia. Until next time, I will see you in the next Property Roast.